So today we're going to talk about the suboccipital triangle. Suboccipital triangle is made because at the very end of the semispinalis, you run into the spinous process of C2. And since there's no spinous process of C1, you end up skipping from there to the skull for the semispinalis capitis. So see how big these transverse processes are? So if you go down from deep, your trapezius is, you remove that and you run into the splenius. So you have the splenius capitis that goes from the spinous processes to the mastoid process. And then right next to it, splenius cervicis that goes to the transverse process. See how big they are? Now the next layer down is going to be semispinalis capitis, where all of the muscles from the transversospinalis musculature are trying to go from transverse to spinous. But after these, 5 to 7, they run out of this spinous process. And so you'll see the star where all the semispinalis cervicis concentrates on C2, but then the next fibers actually go to the skull. And so they spread out along the back of the head as the muscle runs out of spinous processes attached to the back of the head. Okay? And so then you run into this thing of the suboccipital triangle. Well, we're trying to get the head and the C1 to move together because they're supposed to pivot on C2. So you have this thing we call the suboccipital triangle, where from here, going straight to the back of the head, you have rectus capitis posterior major, and then from the arch of C1, you have rectus capitis posterior minor. And then to make sure that C1 moves with the skull, you have obliquus capitis inferior that goes from spinous process over to the transverse process of C1, and then obliquus capitis superior that goes from 1 back onto the posterior portion of the skull. So I'm going to show you that on the cadaver now.